Hello, everyone. Welcome to Postgame Live here at BuckeyeHuddle.com on YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. I am Mark Givler, Ohio State, wrapping up a dominant win over Penn State. Buckeyes remain undefeated, and of course, we suspect they'll remain number one in the country when the new polls come out after the weekend. We've got an all-star team here today. I got Juck with me. We got Devin Radcliffe here. Let's start. Devin, let's start with you since welcome, man. It's been a little bit. Glad to have you today. Your thoughts on the Ohio State defense to this point, just what we've seen out of this defense this year. You're a defensive coach. Maybe not their best tackling performance in the first half. They really buttoned things up in the second half and it really took over this game and allowed the offense to continue to push.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, big picture, obviously it's just been an incredible season so far. For Coach Patricia since, replacing Coach Knowles and the season Coach Knowles, especially second half season playoff run Coach Knowles had last year on the national championship season. Matt Patricia had all kinds of expectations, question marks that, everyone heard all season long, and he's been more than exceeded expectations for all the college football fans, Ohio State fans out there. Today was a big test. They made a big deal, and rightfully so, of that this was the first time that the Ohio State defense had surrendered a first half touchdown, let alone two of them in a half. I think the graphic at one point said they'd given up 12 points all season in the first half, and they gave up two touchdowns in the first half today. So I think a big thing to see was that obviously halftime went in, made adjustments, corrected mistakes. I know Penn State did score on one short field, but again, one of the backbones of the Ohio State defense going back a few years actually has been how well they perform in those condensed areas. And for Penn State to punch it in, that could have had, was it going to be a crack in the armor there? And, you go into halftime and, obviously make the adjustments, come out. And I think I saw at one point prior to that last Penn State drive, they'd given up 1 yard or something that's just even hard to do in video games, for basically the duration of the second half. So, great halftime adjustments, and that's a hallmark of a good coach, good defense is, hey, things aren't going quite right with our game plan. It's not quite working out like we thought it was. And they adjusted and, again, put up an incredible second half performance there today.
Juck, your thoughts on that second half from the defense? It feels like they took that a little, even, again, you can't really blame them so much for the second one because of the field position, but it feels like they took that personally in the second half, how they came out. And that's maybe the sign of a championship caliber team when things that, an average team maybe we got a short field and it's only 14 points and, this, that, and the other, we're winning the game. The offense is playing well. They seem to go out there as if they had to pitch a shutout in the second half. And you got to like that mentality, right?
Totally agree. When Penn State was able to move it down, inside the red zone, they were absolutely locked in. They did not want to give up 21 points. It was very, very clear. Penn State got 4 cracks at it. You had the targeting call and the reversal, and you could see just how pumped up Caleb was to not get thrown out of the game, and they all were. I mean, they wanted that bad, and it's a prideful group. I think they know that they've got a chance at being one of the, historically best statistical defenses in Ohio State history. They want it bad, and they are dominant, man. They are dominant. Had that short field not happened, probably looking at another 7-point game. They gave up 14, but boy, that second half was a fantastic performance, even though there was some dink and dunks and Penn State was able to move the ball. And ultimately it's about points. They gave up 14 points, none in the second half. They did another tremendous job. And we had some excellent performances that I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, Jeff, real quick there to keep it with you for a second. The Jim Knowles experiment not going well at Penn State. Didn't go well today. They only forced one Ohio State punt, which was kind of a gifted punt, in my opinion, the way Ryan Day called that series. And, I would argue that the Penn State's defensive disappointment this year has been as much of a reason for James Franklin getting fired as anything. Their inability to get key stops late in games and second halves Today they couldn't get stops at all. That had to be satisfying, though, for Ryan Day, like the offensive staff. That had to be satisfying to put that kind of number on Knowles' defense today, don't you think?
Without a doubt. And I think Ryan Day let us know that in his press conference on Tuesday, where he let us know, we try not to take these things personally, but we are human. He was very direct about that. And I think that, you're absolutely right. Knowles' performance hasn't been great. Now, count me as someone who thought, and, everybody talked about it takes 3 years for Knowles to really get things going. I thought this would work for Penn State because I assumed that he would come in and Franklin would hire him with the understanding, look, we got players that can win right now. Obviously, your full system takes a while, but let's, come up with something that are going to help these guys, learn and play easily and quickly right now to the best of their ability. Listening to Knowles last week, it's, he's talking about, it's complicated, et cetera. It doesn't seem like he's dumbed things down for them at all. I don't mean to say dumb things down, but it's clear that all season long, they've been playing slow. It's been tough. They've been going into like coaches meetings, trying to accelerate the learning process. I think it's a total failure on Franklin's part to not make sure that, we had this on the same page with Knowles from the beginning, that, the whole system can't be implemented. Like, we got to do something. We got to pivot so that they can play their best this year. The whole thing was a debacle from the beginning. Absolutely. I'm sure they're very satisfied about hanging this number on them. I kind of wanted to hang another one in the last 4 minutes.
And, certainly, simplifying things, sure. But my thing is, when Jim Knowles got to Ohio State, I don't think it's an apples comparison in terms of what Jim Knowles took over to Ohio State, which was a train wreck on defense, versus what he walked into at Penn State, which was a top 5 or 10 type of defense.
Yeah.
Yes, you lost Abdul Carter, but you brought back several all Big Ten players, different levels of your defense. Like, there's talent. This is not like a start from scratch. Please save our defense. They lost their defensive coordinator, who was very successful there. They didn't fire him. So to me, this has just been shocking that this hasn't worked a little bit better than it has to this point. Devin, I'll flip to you here. What have you noticed out of Matt Patricia's defense? Because we heard all this talk last year about, well, they can't do odd man fronts because Larry Johnson, blah, 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 and, simulated pressures and all this other stuff that we rarely saw. But Patricia's doing all that, is he not?
I think the biggest thing you can see for the Ohio State defense is not just Coach Patricia, but he's got a staff full of really good teachers of football to come in. And, all offseason the talk was, well, we're going to kind of continue on and look for a coordinator that's going to keep doing what we had been doing there in the playoff run. Well, for basically, they overhauled the defense from what they had done in the playoff run last season, again, which was a phenomenal defense. And, to your point about even versus odd fronts, that was obviously the great debate going back years now, and how he's able to do it to kind of oversimplify, because he didn't come in and overhaul the roster either, and rightfully so. There's much credit there to keeping everybody in the portal, or keep everybody from entering the portal, excuse me. So he took the defensive lineman he had and was able to implement odd front principles while maintaining even front teaching and technique. So he didn't have to replace any bodies with big, prototypical, 300-pound defensive ends and a 350-pound nose tackle, which you traditionally think of in a 3-4 odd front. He's able to implement these techniques and these fronts without changing anything what these players really had to learn or had been learning for the past, 3-4 years for a lot of these guys. And I think that's a lot of the secret and the success is he didn't have to change a lot of technique necessarily up front. He was able to take the technique they had been using and implement it with the fronts he brought to Ohio State.
Let's dive into the game here a little bit more today. This was pretty obvious for me, but I guess got a little interesting there toward the end. But the first thing we'll do the 3 and out here first. The first thing I've noticed is Kenyatta Jackson has been activated the last couple of weeks. He started out a little slow. He got dinged a little bit. People were wondering, well, this was supposed to be his big year. I think we're seeing that start to come to fruition now. it sure seemed like he wrecked that game today. I mean, he was constantly involved in the action. Juck, your thoughts on Kenyatta's play, just not just today, but just it feels like he's trending up over the last few weeks. Like he's been just kind of steadily building to this point where he's just starting to take over games.
Absolutely. It's not by accident. I mean, we recall a couple of weeks ago, he let him know, talking to Tom and Tony on a Wednesday night, that he asked if he could get in a little more on the game, essentially. He said, I don't mind caging. I'll do whatever I got to do for this team. And by the way, he's done an excellent job at that assignment up until, that point. But he wanted to be a little more aggressive, except like you said, he wanted to be activated, wanted to get in on the fun. And ever since then, it's absolutely working. And now we're seeing the Kenyatta Jackson that I think we were all hoping to see all year. Okay, maybe it was there all along. He just wasn't getting the green light. But boy, a sensational game today, causing a couple of pressures in addition to his sacks, in addition to a batted ball, and the juice and the energy that he's playing with. It just feels like confidence is building, and maybe we're going to see something out of him that we saw out of Jack Sawyer towards the end of the season in 2023, where he just comes on towards the end of the year and just starts rolling into the postseason. When Jack didn't really get the postseason, but one of those kind of finishes to the year here. I'm getting really excited for 97, man.
Devin, obviously Jackson, big game today. They are implementing Arvell Reese, it seems, more and more each week into the pass rushing schemes. What have you noticed from those two specifically, especially Arvell? Like, this is like, they haven't had a lot of guys like Arvell. Like I would go back to like a Bobby Carpenter as a guy they could use on the edge and also at linebacker, but Arvell is, in my opinion, a more explosive pass rusher. We have not seen many like him in terms of the different things he can do for them.
Think in comparison, they're using him a lot like Bobby Carpenter is a great example of a base down, run down, par down, a linebacker that moved to defensive end or defensive line in pass rush situations. Another one I think of just top of my head was Ryan Shazier in terms of an explosive playmaking linebacker. Another one along those same lines, going back a few years or shortly after that, Shazier was actually Darren Lee, and the way he was utilized as a pass rusher. Obviously you go back to Darren Lee, and he was MVP of the Sugar Bowl when they beat Alabama, and he had something crazy like three sacks and a couple tackles for loss coming off the edge in that game. But Reese is such a big guy. Obviously everyone's talked about. You can't get online and not read about his potential as a draft pick already. His size, how you mentioned it yourself, how explosive he is today in the pass rush. The bend he showed, not just being explosive, but able to bend around the edge. And then just, and close on the quarterback, really good open field tackler. We saw that, I think, the next play after the sack, where it was a bubble screen, and he just pursues inside out, puts the guy on the ground for a 1 yard gain. So, he really does show you all the stuff that, 6'4", 250 or whatever his height weight is. And to be a big guy and then as explosive as he is, that's what really gets, demonstrates or shows how he's making all these plays so far this season.
I mentioned on Twitter during the game, I said, he looks like someone who's going to lead the NFL in sacks at some point. It looks so easy and natural for him when he rushes the passer, when they line him on the edge, not even just as a blitzer, but just lining up on the edge. He has a rare ability to bend and dip that inside shoulder and just blow right past these offensive tackles. This is going to be interesting to watch what his future looks like in the NFL, because I look at it, teams like the Steelers that like to use those types of guys. I'm just like, oh my gosh, if he gets in and put in a defensive scheme like that, he's going to have a 15 sack season in the NFL. He's just a special talent. Talked about one of the other 3-and-out points, Noel's defense getting gashed. We talked a lot about that already, but Juck, what do you think the problem is here? Because you can't tell me that Penn State left him an empty cupboard. Like, I refuse to accept that. So why is this happening? And is this not a bigger problem for Penn State? Is this not as big of a problem for Penn State as, replacing the head coach, is figuring out what you have to do with a $3 million a year defensive coordinator who would also command a pretty significant buyout?
Interesting, situation there, right? Like, what happens if you hire a guy who's got a guy, right? A defensive coordinator, like, that's my guy. It is an interesting situation, but and we go back to up until the Oregon game where things kind of fell apart for them. Obviously, they had 3 cream puffs leading into the Oregon game, but the defense was, they played Oregon pretty tough. I think when it was 17-17 when it went into overtime. After that, man, I'm not so sure it wasn't a whole lot of give up, but you look at the UCLA game, we've seen some really bizarre decisions by Knowles, and he wouldn't adjust. He wouldn't put Nico was just gashing him to death. He wouldn't put a spy on him. When he did put a spy on him, it was denied Dennis Sutton, a 270-pounder, trying to spy on Nico, which was really bizarre. But yeah, strange situation. Who knows what's going to happen there? Obviously, we've seen the coaching search. The name's been brought up all over the place. But if a guy has, let's say, for instance, Brent Pry, who's the latest name floated, like, I'm pretty sure he's really happy with his DC. Like, I don't know what happens there. It's going to be, I'm really enthralled by the Penn State coaching search and what's going to happen here.
No doubt. And I don't know if we'll have time to get through all this conversation here. We're waiting for Ryan Day, obviously, in the press conferences to start. But my third point was that the Heisman Trophy should be in Columbus this year. And there's really 2 ways of looking at this. And either way, to me, points to Ohio State. If you want to go by the actual spirit of the rule or of the award, then it should go to the best player in college football. Well, that's Jeremiah Smith. So that points to Ohio State. If you want to go with what basically the latest interpretation of it has been for about the last 25 years, it's, okay, who's the best quarterback on a really good team? Well, that's Julian Sayin. So how, Ohio State versus the field here for the Heisman, doesn't it have to be an Ohio State award at this point, barring a collapse here the next few weeks? We'll start with Devin on that.
Can't really speak to national field as, I primarily get a chance to watch Ohio State games. But, I think, when you read about national pundits and the performance Julian Sayin's had so far this year, I think I saw today he had more touchdowns than incompletions, which is just incredible. And again, I mentioned it earlier to talk about the defensive performance. But again, that's hard to do in Xbox games to have more touchdowns than incompletions. And, he's obviously having an incredible year. Credit to the coaching staff and the way they brought him along thus far this season.
Yeah, let's we'll revisit this. We got Terry Smith from Penn State.
It was a game of 2 halves. Thought the first half we came out and fought valiantly. We got the critical takeaway late in the second quarter. Offense converted. We scored 2 touchdowns in the red zone against a team that's number 1 in the country in that area. Then we came out in the second half, and the third quarter set the tone for them. They got 14 points, and we just never could respond. I'm super proud of our guys for fighting to the end. They didn't quit, but we have to learn and to finish. Questions?
We're going to switch to Ohio State now. Jeremiah Smith at the podium.
I think it's a combination of all things. Lack of pass.
So he couldn't grab a champion, so I just had to make a play.
Over here to the right, Stefan Kreisnik.
Jeremiah, following up there on what you've been asked about Julian, Coach Day talked this week about Julian's mobility, maybe using it at times. Just what element do you think that can add to your offense? I mean, there's that one play, I think he escaped 2 or 3 sacks and was able to extend the drive.
Yeah. I feel like we're going to need that from him all throughout the rest of the year. The arm talent that he got, we better know he going to be able to use his legs too as well. So, we're going to need that from him for sure.
Over to the left, Doug Lesmerises.
Jeremiah, I know it's not easy, but what are all the things that go into you guys being able to convert on those deep shots like you did multiple times today?
Yeah, when we get the chance to, in the right coverage, like Coach Day said, we take our shots, we got to hit them. We don't get too many of those. Today we got a lot of them, so we got to take advantage of them.
Was there anything in particular about the coverage that was allowing that to happen?
A lot of quarters to the field. Carnero ran the post wide open. I ran the inside 9 and made a big play.
Tim May.
Yeah, Jeremiah, it seems like Cardinal Tate's turn one time and then your turn the next. How formidable a duo do you feel like you guys are right now, being able to?
Best in the country. Yeah. Nobody's better than us two. Even no Brandon Ennis as well. I mean, best receiver corps in the country as well. I mean, the whole receiver group, all got talent. We just go out there each and every weekend, put it all on the field.
And is Julian as good a deep thrower as you've been around? Just what's your take on Julian throwing it deep?
Yeah, he's probably the best I've been around for sure, the deep ball. Yeah.
Over to the left, Cameron Teague Robinson.
Jeremiah, you talk about the coverages you guys put, or the lack of deep shots you guys can take because people kind of cover you guys differently.
Yeah.
That deep ball you had, it looked like you beat two people. Just kind of walk me through that. And did you see the double coverage, or was it just something that you just kind of ran right by?
No, actually, they was in quarters. I guess the corner ain't know what they were supposed to be in, and I heard him. The safety said, so I knew the ball was going to me, and I just had to go make a play.
Great. Jeremiah, thank you very much.
We'll start here in the front row with Tim May, and then we're going to come.
Ryan, how would you sum up today? I mean, obviously, you take one play away from the first half, and it's about as dominant a performance as you could expect. I mean, what's your take?
Well, I think it's a great example for everybody that when you turn the ball over, especially down there, you put yourself at risk. I mean, all the work that gets put in, can be all for naught if we don't take care of the football. So it's a lesson learned. We came in at halftime. We were up by 3. You would have thought we were down by 21. But I thought we responded well. And that's the thing is when you come out in the second half, you have to learn from the first half, but you can't dwell on it. And so we knew how important that first drive was. We were aggressive. I thought some of Julian's deep balls were just excellent in this game, and saw how they were playing us in the first half. Felt like we had a chance to get behind them, and so we called those plays, and Julian and the receivers did a great job. Jeremiah, Carnell, and then it was good to see obviously us finish the game with some runs. Got physical, so that was good as well. But the defense was excellent, really stepped up. I know there was a couple of third downs early on that were frustrating, but I thought Matt, changed it up a little bit, and then the guys played, really physical, got to the quarterback, changed up the looks in the back end. So very good team win.
Go over here to Steven and then to Austin. Ryan, are you happy with what you got from your interior offensive line, both in the run game and pass protection today?
Man, I'll have to watch it all, but that is the good thing. We get to watch the iPad. I thought there was some plays that, when you're playing against, a team like Penn State who has a lot of talent, you're going to have some plays that aren't perfect. But I thought the strain to protect when you're pushing the ball down the field like we are, the first big play to Carnell, the one to Jeremiah, the other one to Carnell. I mean, those are probably 3.5 second plus plays. There's a lot of strain on those plays. So I thought that was well done. It was good to see us finish late in the game. I thought we really fit some runs up late and we're physical late. That was good. Sometimes the run game takes a little time. So was it perfect? No, but I thought the guys played hard and there was a lot of good play in there.
Go to Austin. Then we're going to come over to the left to Rob Aller.
Ryan, I felt like there were a number of maybe some new wrinkles offensively. How much of that is now being 2 months into the season with that body of work, and is any part of it having some familiarity with the other coordinator?
Well, we wanted to change up the looks and the personnel groupings and just try not to be not predictable. I think that's probably something that for us, we try not to be predictable, but that's not really the right word to use. We just wanted to change up the groupings and just make the defense a little bit uncomfortable and not being able to anticipate maybe what they were getting, if that's the best way to put it. But we certainly weren't going to re-engineer our offense based on the team that we were going against. So I felt like we did that. We found ourselves in some different formations, and then we shifted and moved it around so that they couldn't really nail us down. And then we identified what the game plan was, and I thought we really attacked them in the second half.
Go over to the left to Rob and then to Pat Forty.
Yeah, Ryan, you got Haskins, Stroud, last year with Will, you've got Fields. You're just stacking talent at the quarterback position. How proud are you of the development of what's going on there? This was never QBU until you arrived really?
Well, it comes down to everybody involved. I think, it starts with Hart as the coordinator, then it goes down to Billy as the position coach, and everybody involved with it. And then it goes to Julian and the guys who play the position. And Julian's, really getting more and more confidence every day. He works at it. I think the preparation that he puts in that quarterback room is starting to show. His mind works as quick as the ball comes out. He's obviously accurate. So I think one of the biggest plays of the game was the scramble he had. Would love to see him have two hands on the ball there, but that was a big scramble in that spot. You didn't know where the game was going. And that's what happens in those games. You fumble the ball in, the first half, and it's a 3-point game at halftime. You don't get that first down. Who knows where the game goes? I mean, these are the turning points in the game that from following these games. And I know as years go on, you watch these games, you see those moments where the game could turn. And so I thought that was a big play. So he's growing in the run game as well, I think. But to answer your question, yeah, I believe that when you come as a position coach, it should be that position you. That's what I think. And I felt like that when I first got here. And it's great to see, the quarterbacks continue to believe in what we're doing. I don't know. I shouldn't say I don't know what else is out there. I've watched them from afar. I think there's some really good quarterbacks across the country this year. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the conference. And so, it'll be told when the season's over. I think it's easy to be it whenever week 8, week 9, week 10, and try to make, proclamations on where guys are. I think we have to see, what the season, holds for us and the progress that's made. And then we go from there. And I think even when you look at, the Heisman Trophy, it's sort of after the season's over and there's still a whole bunch of football to be played afterwards. So I think that's unique, but that's the tradition. But I do think that if Julian continues to play the way that he's playing, he deserves to be in the conversation at the very least.
Go to Pat and then to Doug Lamarice.
Robbie stole my question there. But all right, I'll ask you just about Julian's unflappable demeanor. And even on that scramble, he looked like he was unhurried about, reading and reacting to that. Just how much that demeanor helps him be as good as he is.
Well, that's something that's very hard to teach. When you can feel the rush and not have your eyes on it, your eyes can be down the field. You can anticipate what's happening and the ball comes out. And I'd like to tell you that we coach that, but we don't. He has that feel. And that's something that, makes quarterback special. He has that trait.
Good. Yeah. Pass the mic over to Doug. Thank you.
Ryan, you said it felt like you were down 21 at the half. Why did it feel that way? Did you want it to feel that way?
I just think that we felt like, we were playing well in certain areas, but it just, they got a couple first downs on us. We fumbled, they scored, and it was a little frustrating. And I think, we want to be in at halftime. In that moment, we wanted to be at least winning by 10, and then to turn around and only be up 3. It was like, you got to be kidding me. Because, at that point, we felt like we were getting the ball to start the second half. We were going to be somewhat aggressive, but not reckless. We wanted to end with the ball or points. And for us to fumble in the first play was very frustrating. So that's really what led to that, probably.
Come over here to the right to Spencer.
Ryan, with what you were saying on Tuesday about this kind of being a little bit more like the NFL and coaching is a business anyway, but did you sense that your players had a little bit of extra motivation this week on the defensive side? And then can you kind of sense the way that they were feeling throughout this game about, who's not calling defensive plays for you anymore?
Honestly, no. I didn't feel any of that. Maybe I guess when the season started and when I was looking ahead, I thought maybe that would come into play, but it just didn't. I don't think any of our coaches or players were distracted by that.
Go over here to Dylan and then over to the right to Bill.
Ryan, when you talk about stacking bricks in a season and building that foundation to come through a bye week like this, have a team that maybe was down record-wise, but you talked about all week, but still plenty talented, for them to take this serious and to perform like this, where does that rank in terms of like good signs for a team's culture building?
Well, we constantly talk about being consistent week in and week out. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. And I thought this was a good example of, really not testing the theory out, but seeing, where our team was in this area, because if you have a young team where, you play to your opponent, you obviously put yourself at risk. And so how do you perceive a team that's, lost a few games in a row, and going through some difficult times? Well, these guys still have a lot of NFL players on the team, and we knew it was going to be a challenge. So again, it just went back to us and our preparation and how hard we play. And, for us, that was just the next team on the list that we have to execute against. And that's a tribute to the coaches, and it could be, a tribute to the players for continuing to believe in that and keep pushing. And I still think we all know that we can get better in certain areas. We got to keep pushing. And so we have to master the routine, and that's getting rest tonight, come back tomorrow, address the issues, and then it's on to Purdue.
And last question to Bill in the front.
You said it felt like you were down 21 at halftime. What was your message to the team at that point?
Well, I said kind of what I tell you guys. You're either winning, losing, or you're tied at halftime. And we have to identify what went on in the first half, and say it all the time. All the work that gets put in, if we turn the ball over, your whole season can be ruined. So I don't want to just dwell on that one turnover. I feel like I'm talking about it a lot, but we just won 38-14 against Penn State. So if you said that to me about 2 months ago, I don't think I'd be talking about one fumble that we had, but I'd rather be talking about. And by the way, when I said that about Julian Sayin, I also feel like Carnell and Jeremiah. Again, if there's two better wide receivers in the country, I'd like to see them. And they deserve to be up for a lot of awards too as we're getting towards the end of the season, because it's not about individual recognition around here, but I know a lot of people support their players. I want to make sure that I'm supporting my guys because they're great players. And then we also have a bunch of guys on defense doing the same thing. So, but this is not about individuals, it's about the team. And that's something that's been a mantra to our team all season long. And so the message at halftime, was that, if we take care of the football, we're going to win the game. If we turn the ball over some more, we're going to be in this game in the fourth quarter. So that was the first thing. The second thing was that, we needed to have a great drive to come out in the third quarter, and that great teams win in the second half. And that was really it. And I do want to say before we're done, again, how great the crowd was. I thought the crowd was in the stadium early. They were rocking early. They just, this season, I think Ross has done a great job with the game day atmosphere. And I feel like everybody understands when they have the ball, how to be loud, and just they're playing off the players. And when the players need the crowd's there. It gives our guys energy. And I could feel it in the second half. And so I just want to thank the crowd, because at the Skull Session, we say, the band's got to do their job, fans got to do their job, and we got to do our job. And I thought and everybody did today for a great win. So thank you. Yeah.
Coach, thank you very much. We'll bring Julian to the front, and then Caleb Downs looks like he's headed to the back there. And then we will start here in where is the microphone? Microphone anywhere. Yeah. Front row, Joey Kaufman, go ahead.
Julian, on those deep balls to Jeremiah and Carnell, what went into those? Were you able to have a day where you complete 3 balls over 40+ yards?
Yeah, a lot of practice going into the week. We practice those a lot, and I think Coach Hartline and Coach Fessler and Coach Day, we do a great job of preaching that in practice, and then they make great adjustments, and we're able to bring them in and ran great routes to get behind them, and we had a great scheme because we were able to get a flat-footed safety and have Carnell and Jeremiah run right by him.
Rob Aller?
Yeah, Julian, how much is the recent history of Ohio State and quarterbacks influence your decision to come here in terms of development, in terms of knowing whether it's a Fields or a Stroud? Did that play in at all?
Definitely. When you see guys like Justin Fields and CJ Stroud throwing to guys like Garrett Wilson and Olave, when I was growing up watching it, it definitely influenced me because of, the quarterback development that's here with Coach Day. And then the receivers that we have here are able to just make plays whenever the ball's in the air.
Go right here to Steven and then to Ari.
Julian, can you, for starters, walk us through that 9-yard scramble you had, just like what you saw and what you were feeling in that moment? And then on top of that, how long did it take you to maybe get comfortable with the chaos that can sometimes be back there when you're operating the pocket?
Yeah, first thing, I got to keep 2 hands on the ball. I had one hand on the ball there. It was dangerous. But they were playing a coverage where they were doubling Jeremiah and doubling Carnell. And we didn't have a ton of man winners on that play. So had to go make something happen and keep my eyes up, see if we could pop open. But ended up taking off, and then just in the back of my mind, thinking about the sticks and thinking about where we need to get to. And if I have to go, not slide and go pick it up with my legs and go run through some contact for the first down. That's what we have to do to get the first down.
Go to Art. Oh,
Yeah, I think, as a quarterback, you always have to be, be willing to make plays with your legs if the play's not there, and, extend drives because, if we don't extend that drive, we get off the field there. And that's nobody's happy with it right now.
go to Ari and then to Stefan.
Hey, Julian, I'm sure you were pretty busy this morning, but did you see what Nick Saban said about you this morning?
I did not. No, we had the early kick. So
he called himself a dumbass for playing you on scout, and not that he would have had an option given the timeline. But what's it like to have national media, national people like Nick Saban, who's the greatest coach of all time, and now in the position with College Game Day, like recognizing the way you've been playing?
That's awesome. I appreciate the kind words, and but this is a team game, and the offensive line did a great job today. Receivers did a great job today, and none of it happens without us as an offense, as a collective.
Stefan?
Follow up a bit on what Coach Day was talking about, just with Carnell and JJ. He said they're the two best receivers in the country, I guess. Do you agree with that? And what is it, or what did it do for you this offseason, getting ready to start and having those guys available, whether it be practice, whether it just be throw-in sessions, whatever it was, to kind of grow with them and develop with them?
100%. Those guys are the two best in the country, and they show it every Saturday. I see it in practice on Tuesdays and Wednesdays when they go make plays against the best defense in the country. So I think it shows up within our week, and then it shows up on Saturdays. And those guys do such a great job of putting in the hard work in the off season and being leaders within the team, and being leaders in the weight room. So I think it just all their hard work is showing up on Saturdays when they're able to make those great plays.
Go over here to the left to Bill and then to Jeff Gilbert.
Your completion percentage is over 80%, which is kind of an astounding number. Do you even look at your stats, and what do you think is responsible for that, other than great receivers and all the rest? But does that surprise you that you're at that level?
Yeah, it's really a team stat because of the way the offensive line has to block and the way that receivers have to catch the ball, and can't have like a tip today. We had a tip, and Jeremiah ends up catching that. So it's stuff like that where the receivers do a great job and the running backs do a great job in pass protection, and it's really just the offensive line giving me time to be able to go through my reads. So it's really a team stat.
What was different about the attitude coming out of halftime for you guys? Fast start.
Yeah, we were kind of disappointed with how the last drive went. We ended up turning the ball over. So coming out of halftime, we knew what we were doing, and we knew we could move the ball. So we were excited. We took a shot, I think, on the second play and hit it, and just keep the momentum going.
Go over here to Spencer.
Julian, you've been pretty calm and collected. Basically, every time you guys score, just kind of celebrate with your teammates, things like that. You saw like you were a little bit more animated after the touchdown pass to Bennett. What went into that, and what does it mean to get a guy like Bennett, or last time you guys played with Brandon, a touchdown when you can always get it to 17-4, but those guys also work pretty hard? Yeah, I mean, a guy like Bennett, he's someone who does a lot of the dirty work for our offense and was able to, if we're running power and he kicks out a defensive end, to see him get in the end zone, it's a great job. And we practiced that play, and it rarely goes to him. And I think I hit it once in practice and was pretty fired up when we hit it. And my first touchdown pass ever in my career when I was a freshman was to Bennett. So it's awesome to see plays like that happen, and it was just had me fired up.
We'll do two more. We'll go to Doug and then over here to the right to Tim. Doug, go ahead.
Julian, just to double check from a football standpoint, could you just throw the ball 50 yards down the field on every play if you wanted to?
Definitely not. We definitely have to be strategic, and I think our coaches did a great job of when we're calling the shots. We got some good looks into it today, and if it's not there, we got to check the ball down. And when we check it down, our receivers do a great job of catching and knifing.
But do you kind of know that when the opportunity's there, like it's in the holster, it's ready when the opportunity presents itself with those deep shots? Yes, definitely. We want to be aggressive. We don't want to be reckless, but we want to be aggressive. And if we get one-on-one with our receivers, we think we have a good chance of them making a play.
All right, we'll wrap it up with Tim May.
Yeah, does it hurt you deep down in your gut when you have to throw a ball away, which you haven't done very much? You understand what I'm saying? That was one of those shots, But and then number two, what's it like to have two guys like that capable of taking the top off of defense? It seems like at almost any moment. Yeah, throwing the ball away. I'm still trying to improve, and I keep understanding staying on schedule, because that was a key point for us in this game, is stay on track and keep moving the sticks. And then number two, sorry, what'd you say? Taking the top off the defense. Yeah. Carnell and Jeremiah, I mean, they're able to get behind the defense, and
Made some great catches. Carnell had the one touchdown, and then had the one coming out of halftime. So it's and then Jeremiah obviously with the deep one too. It's awesome to see because of how much practice we do throughout the week to practice those plays.
All right, Julian, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was the Ohio State press conference. We heard from Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Day, and quarterback Julian Sayin. We'll get back to our Heisman talk here in a minute, but I wanted to hit a couple of points from the press conference. First of all, Devin, start with you on this. We kind of speculated that might have been the case going into the locker room about how they came out in the second half. Ryan Day kind of confirmed it, by mentioning it. They acted like they were down 21. As a guy, again, who's coached defense for a long time, how hard is it to instill that mentality in a team, and how lucky maybe is this Ohio State staff to have guys who are wired that way, or maybe they've weeded personalities out in the recruiting process to have them wired that way. But either way, this seems like a luxury to have a team that's pretty self-motivated.
That's a great question. And I think, first thing is it's just as simple as taking pride in your work. And when you have a bunch of guys who are serious about their business, serious about the product they put out, the way they play on the field, it doesn't take much to necessarily motivate them. Motivate, you get lost in coach speak here a little bit, but, motivation is an emotion, and you just can't run on emotion all game long. At some point, it comes down to playing with flat back, bent knees, and, doing your 1/11th and executing your assignment. So, having a bunch of guys who carry themselves the way they do, you go in the locker room and say, hey, Billy, you've got to do this to stop that. And when you have a player who's serious about his performance, it really does make adjusting a little bit easier. Obviously then you take that and then you add in the motivation factor of, hey guys, this team's put more on us in a game than we've given up all season. That's just icing on the cake there to get the performance you saw out of Ohio State's defense there in the second half.
Juck, we got a lot of time there with Julian Sayin. Okay, so like the football stuff's the football stuff. We've talked about this, you and I have on the shows, like born to throw the football, like all that good stuff. But I'm just seeing this incredible development from him, not just in throwing the football and his accuracy and his efficiency, but in everything that the quarterback position entails, from the press conference, handling the press conferences, to running the football there, picking up that third down. I think at the beginning of the year, he might've just turtled and taken a sack, or, but fighting and getting that first down, the emotion is starting to come out a little bit. I know you don't want your quarterback to just be like an absolute psychopath out there, but you also, like, I know Ryan Day wants a little bit of that juice out of him. We're starting to see that more. Just your impressions of Julian's progression throughout the year. It just feels like every week we're getting something different from him and better.
Totally agree. And to your point about the emotion, it's one of the things Ryan Day seemed to think, early on, he kind of tipped us off that, he wanted to see some development here. It's more than just being the quarterback and being the leader. Like, everybody needs to hear you with the cadence and just like all these little things. And it felt like Julian, wasn't quite there yet. And now we're just seeing slowly a little bit more developing that a little more, the emotion on the field. The press conference answers were like robotic in the beginning, and now you're seeing a little more personality, just more comfort in himself, in his skin, and in the role. The run, love that Ryan Day said that was, that scramble for the first down was one of his favorite plays out of him. I could not agree more. That was sensational. Keeping that going. The natural feel that he has in the pocket, evading pressure, similar to Will Howard, both kind of have an uncanny knack for that. And it's something, like Ryan Day said, you can't teach. And when we look at Julian's numbers, talking about the Heisman, and you were bringing that up, I mean, the one stat that stands out from the bunch of all these guys, the quarterbacks that are kind of clustered at the top here that are in the conversation, there's only one that stands out between them all. They're all relatively the same, except for that accuracy of Sayin. And when you consider that he has a depth of target up there with all the other guys, it's pretty ridiculous how accurate he is. I think it's setting up perfectly where, he's going to start getting that real buzz. Obviously, he's already there in the odds in the top three, But when we listen to the pundits and the talking heads, he's barely outside the top 5 or maybe 5th. I think we're going to start seeing the momentum if they can win the game heading into that Indiana game. Julian Sayin, Fernando Mendoza. I think there's a real shot here, Mark, at the Heisman. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think the Heisman needs to be in Columbus this year, barring, again, some weird collapse here the last few weeks, because whichever parameters you want to use, whether it's a quarterback's award, and Sayin's, for my money, has been the best quarterback in the country this year, or whether it's if you're a purist, kind of like I am, best player in the country, well, that's Jeremiah Smith. So
yeah.
I don't know why it wouldn't end up in Columbus, but we've seen some weird things happen before with awards. So we can't pretend that it's a lock. But it was interesting. Jeremiah Smith came out first. Ryan Day's always first. So I wonder if he and Jim Knowles were catching up after the game. You think that's why Ryan was late?
I'm doubting that one, Mark.
Yeah. So okay, let's get to the Sayin accuracy thing as well, because that's an interesting part of this. It's not just the statistical accuracy. Yes, he's 80%, and that's a great number no matter what. Like there's no way to spin 80% as a negative. It's a great number. But for people who maybe don't watch them every week, I could see people saying, well, he's got the 2 best receivers in the country. These guys are always open. The ball placement is insane. Like the early throw to Smith along the sideline away from the safety was nuts. The Bennett Christian touchdown, that window was not that wide. That was a pretty narrow window to get that ball in. Especially for, kind of with these big tight ends. They don't necessarily have the flexibility and everything, like a Jeremiah or a Carnell Tate would have. So it's just the spots he puts the ball in is just unbelievable. Devin, how do you defend this as a defensive guy?
It's another great question. You got a guy that's, as a redshirt freshman quarterback, typically, obviously you see it take time for quarterbacks to develop. Typically it's later in their career when you see them really start to shine. For a young guy to have this, incredible start is really saying something. But I think there's something you said, and we haven't heard it much, is anticipation, because you can't wait for a guy to get open, especially against the better challenge, the more challenging defenses you're going to see. So to see him throw in anticipation of where his wide receiver is going to be open is really what you're seeing. And I think another thing too, with Sayin is, I think go back to maybe like Dwayne Haskins, was really good about getting the ball out quick. And so, and letting his wide receivers do something with the ball after the catch. Everyone loves the deep shots and whatnot, but, getting the ball out quick, high percentage throws to guys that can do something with the ball, keeping the offense on schedule and ahead of schedule is something he's really been good at this season. Now you add that onto the deep ball. That actually gets your question about how you defend that guy. It's obviously a challenge, and you saw what Penn State tried to do today, trying to bracket coverage guys. You heard Sayin say in the press conference, on his third down scramble there that he picked up, they actually had a double bracket, one on Tate and one on Smith. So that's 4 defenders for two offenders. So he knew that hey, that's probably not going to be there, and he had to make something happen on his own. As a defensive coach, you want to take your chances with a guy like saying, hey, let's make him run. We haven't seen him do that much to see if he can keep the offense on schedule with his legs. You got to be willing to take those checkdowns and limit those explosives. Is what we see most of the season. You go look at the Minnesota game, and they try to be a bit more aggressive, and that's where we saw the big plays from the offense today. Penn State defense, again, they try to mix it up a little bit with some of the bracket stuff, but also playing with some more man coverage. And again, you saw Ohio State and the offense take advantage of that with the explosive plays they're able to create. But again, long-winded response to say, try and stop someone like Sayin the accuracy he has. It is very challenging. And, you got to try and change some stuff up coverage-wise to try and steal some stops is the way I like to say it. You make him think he's seeing one thing, mess with his anticipation, and it ends up being something else, and try to generate some stops that way would be, one way that could potentially look at trying to stop him and how accurate a passer he is.
Yeah. Jeremiah Smith, another big day. A beautiful one-handed reception on the deflected pass. Juck, just when we thought that the Jeremiah Smith highlight reel was full, we find another one. It's like the low. I always say this. It's the low hanging fruit every week on the show is to talk about Jeremiah Smith, but like,
Right.
it just again, it never fails.
It is. And it's like, yeah, like you said, the low hanging fruit, like talking about now Arvell Reese or Jeremiah Smith is almost like, yeah, that's boring at this point. We know they're going to do ridiculous stuff, but Jeremiah, it's like, I compared it today. I was streaming live, like Tiger Woods in his prime, even when he'd hit a bad shot, he would just get the Tiger bounce, man. And it's just like, tip pass could go to anybody. It's in the vicinity of number 4. He's going to make a ridiculous grab, and he does it again. And then bowls his way over and in for a touchdown. The dude's insane. It's so delightful to watch him. I just, in this year, honestly, we haven't seen, going back to starting at Michigan State last year and then against Iowa, some of those crazy one-handed catches. We were due for one. That one did not disappoint. That was a whole lot of fun.
So now what is like not the motivating factor. We know what the motivating factor is. You got the rivalry game in a few weeks. You got a chance to repeat as national champions. At this point, you can't even, like, Ohio State is such a playoff lock. You can't bet them to not make the playoffs. Like, that's not an option on sports. The books will not take the action on Ohio State missing the playoffs. But like, what is your focus? This is going to be an interesting stretch. You're going to play 5 games in November. And then if those go well, you're going to play another game in Indianapolis. So what are the tweaks? What are the things? We'll start with you, Devin. Like, where are some things maybe that the focus needs to be on, or just some things to experiment with, tweak with? How would you suspect the next few weeks are handled leading up into that finish with Michigan and potentially a team like Indiana in the Big Ten championship game?
Well, the first thing you really need to do, and this is a top-down, macro level, is you just have to be hyper-focused on continuous improvement and hypercritical about making sure you're playing your best football when it doesn't matter who the opponent is. The biggest opponent really for Ohio State week in and week out is themselves, and constant improvement in putting the best team on the field week in and week out. So that's the number one thing, is just really focusing on the continuous improvement and always getting better, not letting complacency creep in. So again, just be hypercritical from the top down, position by position, unit by unit. And the second thing is, you look at each, 3 phases of the game and say, what are the things right now that we are not as good as we need to be at? And you just got to, again, start putting your attention on that and finding ways that you can improve. Look at your body work and analyze what you've done so far and say, hey, we thought we were going to be this, and we're much better at that. I think an easy example of that is just go back and look at the playoff run last year. Hey, we really wanted to be a zone stretch team, but look at look at all these gap scheme runs we busted last year, and hey, we might have something here. So you have that 2-week period, and before the first playoff game against Tennessee, and they really reinvented their run game and became a big base counter gap offense, and the offense, took off because they found something to hang their hat on. So you got to take advantage of this and really, focus in on, hey, what are we at? What are we the best at? What do we continue to look at? And whatever that is, what's this potential missing element of our offense, for example, that we haven't quite executed, up to the best of our ability, and to put 2 conversations together that Jeremiah Smith, incredible catch he made for a second touchdown of the game, came on a opposite side RPO, if I recall correctly, where it looked like Sayin was potentially reading an inside linebacker opposite of the running back, and turned and threw it to Jeremiah Smith for the touchdown. Now that's something that's very hard to do. I think you go back and look at Joe Burrow at LSU. That was something they were able to do a lot with him. You typically don't see that a lot. That is a very, very hard play to execute. Typically you see RPOs where the running back and the receiving threat are on the same side, so the quarterback doesn't have to flip around. So that's the stuff you start looking at as an example that you can put in down the home stretch as a way to continue to improve your team and to get ready for the stretch run of the season here.
Yeah, so a lot of self-scouting maybe the next few weeks and figure it out. Okay, we know who we're playing, but how can we improve our product versus worrying about what other teams are doing. Juck, the run game, it's gonna keep coming up. The numbers weren't great today. Should we still? I mean, Jackson had a good game, obviously, but just when you looked at the final stats, they weren't like eye-popping again. How much of this is nitpicking? How much of this is real, legit? I mean, I'm kind of the guy that says, well, if you can throw the ball the way they're throwing the ball, why are we worried about it? But like, there probably will be a time at some point down the stretch, probably especially against Michigan, where you're going to need to get those tough yards. Where's your concerns right now with this team? Relatively speaking, we're talking first world problems here, of course, but Juck, some things that you are, wanting to find out or see improvement in as we hit the home stretch here.
Ironically, to what Devin was just talking about last year, finding those gap scheme, counter schemes working better. Like this team, I feel like just the opposite. Like they're really clicking with stretch. I'd like to see some more of that. As you know, people hate to hear that, right? That was the big
stretch to the boundary.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, they're doing much better with that. But I think the concern is legit. I feel like I thought that coming into this game, and like you say, first world problems. It's not a huge issue. They did end up with 5.4 yards a carry thanks to Bo's big run. I don't think it was fantastic other than that, but I thought that they were probably going to come out pretty heavy with Bo Jackson and Isaiah West today. And, we didn't really see a whole lot of West. He only ended up with 4 carries on the day. Was nice to see James Peoples, I think, have his best carry of the year. But Donaldson was 7 carries, and some of them were short yardage, but there was some other. He was in there on, like, it was first down in the 2-minute drill when he fumbled, and that is just like I don't know what we're doing here with that. I think you've kind of got your 2 top running backs with Bo and Isaiah. I would like to see them get in more of a groove. The right side of the offensive line has been hit and miss. Now we go back to a couple of weeks ago, and I was wondering, all right, are we going to, maybe not see so much of the tight ends leading into the last game against Wisconsin? And then we didn't see a bunch of the tight ends because they had such a poor game previously against Illinois. And all of a sudden the offensive line has its kind of worst performance against Wisconsin. So coming in today, I was curious. We're going to go back to a lot of heavy sets with the tight ends. Not so much, but I think the right side of the line today wasn't so hot again. Ultimately, I think we really need to keep working on that. But like you said, man, when you've got a passing game that can work so crisp and good, the RPOs are looking really sharp. I like that they've, kind of been leaning on that a little more the last couple of games. Not a huge problem. And when we look at, we got one game maybe in cold weather here moving forward, and that is the game, which is a very important game, but everything after that going to be indoors or warm weather. So how big of a deal is it? I don't know, but I anticipate that they're going to keep working on it a lot more here in these next couple of games where you've got Purdue, UCLA, and Rutgers to work on it. So plenty of time to continue to work on things and dial it in.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they use, I think, some of these games, some of this time. They're on paper going to be really, really big favorites the next 3 weeks. So how much of that are they going to put some stuff on film for other teams to prepare for? Or are they going to work on some things maybe we haven't seen? That's what I'm interested to see the next few weeks. Obviously, you want to see them keep their foot on the gas because, especially like a team like UCLA, which can strangely get hot. They've been a roller coaster this year. It'll kind of be interesting. We know Purdue is like a house of horrors. So you can never quite feel completely comfortable there, but like on paper, again, that's going to be a 25, 30 point spread probably. So it'll be interesting to see just how well they can continue to ramp this up, because I feel like they've done a pretty good job of that this year. I feel like it's not that it's not linear. It's not like a straight line. Like seasons have their peaks and valleys and things like that. But it just feels like this is, maybe Devin, you can kind of speak on this. It feels like this team is much better today than it was when it beat Texas. It just feels like it's a much better team. And I don't know that we can say that every year.
No, I think that is a credit to what Coach Day himself has evolved as a head ball coach. And again, look in the big picture and being in charge of the whole team. Go back to giving up play calling, last year, giving up to Chip Kelly, letting him look at the stretch, the long-term planning. I think you go back to, granted, the playoff has definitely changed the approach you need to take now. I think there's been a lot of talk about how Day's taken the NFL approach where, it's going to be, we're going to keep kind of do the slow build, contrast that to how college football always was, is, you needed to be 1 or 2 period and you couldn't lose. So every game you had to throw the kitchen sink at your opponent because you had to be 1 or 2 and you couldn't lose, for, most of our lives, if you lost a game, well, your championship aspirations are done. Now, because of the playoff, as we saw last year, you can lose 2 and still win it all. So you have the opportunity to go, hey, we're going to go page 1 through 3 in terms of our overall offense, defense, special teams in week 1, and then slowly but surely install a little bit more as the season goes on, as the team has demonstrated they're able to handle what you've already, coached and taught thus far in the season. Again, to your point, Texas week 1 to now, they look like a totally different offense even. I think it's fair to say that they were being very protective of the offense, especially breaking in a brand new quarterback. Didn't want to put him in a position where he had to be the man right away. Look back and contrast that to CJ Stroud's first couple games in his first season, where he had to be the man right away and carry the team immediately, basically. And he had that shaky start. Had to miss a week, and contrast that now to Julian, the next freshman they've has the starting quarterback. It's just been a slow, gradual, continuous, steady progression to what we've seen the past few weeks out of this team, and especially the way the offense has evolved as the season's gone on.
Yeah, just much better infrastructure, I think, around Julian and what CJ had. CJ, they had good players around him, of course, but not to this extent. Certainly didn't have the defense behind him that Julian has this year. Tony is getting close to being ready over there. It looks like we'll get to those guys here as soon as they give us the thumbs up. But so we'll have our second half of the show here. But Chuck, just parting thoughts or final thoughts on the game today, or just anything that's on your mind right now as we as we hit the home stretch here.
Yeah, I think when you hear culture, you think good people, good folks. To Devin's point earlier, like the culture of professionalism right now, this is the best culture in the country because you have all that, man. Good people, good folks, but the culture of personal responsibility, professionalism, holding each other accountable. These guys feel like they're 27 years old. I mean, this team feels very much different than, for instance, the Miami team that we just saw lose in overtime 10 minutes ago, thrown an interception down in SMU. It just feels like a professional outfit from the top down. It doesn't feel like a college football team. It's really just a different vibe with this program and so many others that are kind of on that level in the top 10. And it is so incredibly impressive and a testament to what Ryan Day has done in this era of transient football players, to be able to limit the transfer portal guys coming in every year to about 10, to retain almost every single vital player. The program's on a totally different level. And as we stand here today, Ohio State in my life has never been as dominant of a program on the national scene as they are right now today.
I agree. I mean, it's just it feels like whenever you think this program has plateaued, it takes that next step. I mean, we saw that from Tressel to Meyer with the national recruiting and everything else, and then we're going to plateau under Ryan Day, and they had some struggles and some big games at the beginning of his tenure, and now he's won a national championship and they're number 1 in the country and going for something I don't think any of us have probably seen in our lifetimes, right? A repeat national championship. So that's something that's very much in play for them. And we didn't quite know. We thought maybe possibly, in August, but I don't know that Devin, maybe I'm wrong. Were you sitting here in August thinking we'd be in the first weekend of November thinking, boy, this is the best team in the country?
That's a great question. I think you look at preseason, again, I'll put a couple of conversations here together. You heard Coach Day talk about it. Penn State, this was a team that was a preseason national championship type team because of all the talent they had coming back and whatnot. And, Ohio State started the season, right up there and kind of slowly but surely and not really every week looking necessarily like super dominant, explosive highlights everywhere, but just going about their business and just winning week in, week out, doing what they got to do, win the game, keep advancing, keep getting better. And now we're seeing it at the back end of the season really start to take off instead of, like you just said, instead of maybe coasting or getting stuck in third gear, you really start to see them start shifting gears down the second half here of the season.
Yeah, we're about, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes away from passing it over to Tony, Tom, and crew. I'll throw this back to you, Devin. How do we start to see more and more of Arvell Reese on the edge moving forward? Because their depth at linebacker allows them to really do a lot of different things with that front seven, and you could get Peyton Pierce on the field even more. He seems to be getting a lot of playing time lately. How would you handle that? Because, again, Reese came off the edge a lot today and just was an absolute game wrecker. How much of that do you think we're going to see here down the stretch and into the playoff run?
I think you'll see as much as Coach Patricia thinks you need to see, and to utilize him to create negative plays like you saw him today. Down in, down out. 1st and 10, you don't necessarily need him lining up as your defensive end. You need even a bigger body, stout against the run. But when you get in those pass downs, he's probably the quickest twitch, most explosive pass rusher you got. So that's when you see him, like we mentioned earlier, going back to Bobby Carpenter even. That's when you see him, hey, let's put in our sub package. I think his sack today came in their 3-2 look, where they have, Caleb Downs down the box with 6 DBs in there. And created the sack that Reese had, utilizing him on the edge. So I think it really just down a distance. When do you need to utilize him as pass rusher versus when do you need him in the box? It's not just him. You got guys like Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, even. People forget Sonny Styles was the one that was being talked about, like Arvell Reese is being talked about now during the playoff run last year with the pressure Sonny Styles was creating in some situations. In the playoff games last year, I think Texas was one of the games where he generated a big sack, if I recall correctly, being used just like Reese is being used now. And another guy, kind of unsung hero that's allowed them to move these guys around in certain packages, also getting Lorenzo Styles back on the field. He's able to allow them to move Caleb Downs a lot with the skill set he has, is able to let them do multiple things. So I think Reese is really just a culmination of having multiple guys who can play multiple roles really well, allowing him to be utilized in the position he's in currently with the defense.
Yeah, it was a good day for the aliens on defense. Styles, Downs, Reese, Jackson, all really big numbers. Juck, you have a thought here before we pass it off to Tom and Tony?
Baby Huey, Mark. Edric Houston, we've now got 3 games in a row where he has looked more to the part, maybe the guy that we thought we were going to see coming into the year. Maybe our expectations were, I think most of us, a little too high just based on the caliber of player he was, the trajectory we thought he was on. Wasn't quite ready, had the injury that has kind of maybe slowed him a little bit, but I think a lot of it was he just wasn't ready and he needed more reps, needed to play more, and he has, and had some big plays today. And again, this is now 3 games in a row that we've seen much better play out of him. I think this is now 5 games in a row. We've seen Time Alone kind of morphing into a new Time Alone. And Will Smith Jr., to me, continues to be that the second best interior defensive lineman after Caden McDonald. But watching this group kind of come together and progress as the season has gone on has been one heck of a development, but big shout out to those guys.
Yeah, that's definitely, we're hearing Edric's name getting called more and more during the broadcast here the last few weeks. All right, that'll do it for the first half instant reaction. We got the second half coming up here. Tony, Tom, live from Ohio Stadium. Take it away, guys.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Juck. Thank you, Devin. Full house backfield, handling the
robust tea
more than the first half of the show. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for doing that for all of us. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. How's it going?
Tony, it's funny. I got up here and you were quoting me all these stats about Julian Sayin, and it's this incredible performance. And no one's done this to Penn State since Justin Fields. And it was like, I remember like 3 incompletions. Like, that wasn't a very good game for him at all. And you look at the final score and it's like, yeah, it's about what I thought they do. But yeah, they did give up another. And then you look at the yards per play and they outgained Penn State by 5.4 yards per play. Like, they completely dominated that game. And it just kind of, just because I think honestly, it was the last minute of the first half, last 2 minutes of the first half was just kind of a little bit of a drag on the entire day. And it was, you go into halftime at 17-14 and there's some people booing, and it was like, yeah, I mean, I get it. But then the second half, like, holy smokes, when that went poorly for Penn State, that went like, I mean, this is kind of the season as a microcosm, but like, it was fine for a while, but once it went badly, it went real bad, real fast.
And we'll cover all of that. I guess we can tackle the super chat here from Mike Ferguson. To quote the late great William McKinley, "Never bet on the shutout." Cough, cough. Tony, did he say that? Was that a presidential thing? Is that something that's on his memoirs? Yes. Okay,
yes.
Thank you, Kevin.
After he retired from the presidency, famously in Buffalo. Yes.
So yes, never bet on the shutout. And the problem with that, Penn State had one good drive all game. But then they
had a pretty good one that ended with a punt to start the game. Yes. But then they had another good one.
And then they got the gift that I will probably get to at some point today talking about that. But I do want to talk about Julian Sayin, because we are being spoiled by him right now, where, again, you shouldn't come out of any game necessarily, let alone every game, and know all of the incompletions. And looking at him, so he was 20 of 23 today for 316 yards, 4 touchdowns. He now has 15 touchdowns and 27 incompletions in Big Ten play this year. So he's not very good. It's like, well, you look at the numbers, and
that wasn't exactly what I said.
Yeah, roll the tape back. But those 3 incompletions today, like, he threw one away out of bounds, right? Threw another one away on to James Peoples, like in the near the end zone, where Carson Hinsman got beat right up the middle, so he had to just throw it away. And then the other one was like a drop by Brandon Innes. So your incompletions, Tom, 2 throwaways and a drop. Like, what are we doing here? Like, it's time to move the level up. You got to stop playing on junior varsity. I think you're ready for All-American at this point.
Well, and it wasn't even sure, but they were dinking and dunking today. No. This was the bold prediction show was the almost prediction show for me, where I had a 3-pointer where they're going to complete 3 passes of 50 yards or more, and they completed 2 passes of 50 yards or more and 1 pass of 45 yards. And the only reason it went for 45 yards was because there were only 45 yards available to them at that moment. So call that play 5 yards earlier, you cowards. But it was, this was, he had some safe throws. Yeah, he threw some running backs, but he also, they went downfield when they wanted to go downfield. They did just kind of whatever they wanted to do. They ran the ball fine, but Julian Sayin was able to do essentially whatever he wanted to do. And we'll get to a little bit from Terry Smith later, Penn State's interim head coach. We'll get to hear from him a little bit later on, because he was asked, like, why was Ohio State able to do that? And the TLDR on it was like, yeah, man, have you seen their wide receivers? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, can we talk for a moment? Completing 87% of your passes, it's impressive. But when you have Jeremiah Smith doing whatever the heck that was on that, like, I'm pretty nonplussed on the field at this point. I'm working. I laughed out loud at that last touchdown. It was like, I'm glad this isn't video, because you would have me like snort laughing on this video if it was a video instead of still photos.
That's how the press box was as well.
Yeah,
when it happens, like, what do you?
Jim Knowles had to be going like, yeah, man, what do you want me to do?
And then you weren't here, but most people probably saw it. Jeremiah Smith, his response to that in here was that he was just trying to make sure that Julian Sayin didn't throw an interception there, because you can't grade out a champion if you throw an interception. So he was trying to help the teammate out.
Julian, always, that's good looking out right there. Yeah.
But it was his first one-handed catch of the year, I believe. Just again, another unique performance from Jeremiah Smith. He had 6 for 123 and 2 touchdowns. Carnell Tate 5 for 124. Their 11 targets led to 11 receptions for 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. So when you can just 11 targets for 240, you're 20 some yards a target. Hey boy, you got to ask yourself, why can't you make the entire plane out of those two?
Well, I mean, it kind of felt like they were trying at times, and this is one of these things where they're talking about trying to get a Heisman campaign together, and everyone wants to complain that Ohio State's not doing enough to promote. Like the next 3 weeks, Ohio State has a tremendous opportunity to promote it because they can do whatever they want the next 3 weeks. You want Julian Sayin to throw 7 touchdowns? You can make that happen if you want to make that happen. Yep. Like you can break every school record you want to in every different direction you want to if you want, if they really want to. And then if the opponents, whichever of the next 3, take the opportunity to say, hey, what if we just what if we have 2 guys rush the passer and drop, I don't know, what's 9? Is that like a $5 bill coverage? Like you have 9 defensive backs on the field. You can do whatever you want to do the next couple of weeks because congratulations, Ohio State. Unless your team bus fails to arrive at the stadium, you're going undefeated into Michigan.
Yeah, and Penn State helped them out with the coverages that led to a lot of the deep passes. Super chat from Devin Paul. Tony, did Tom ever find the honey hole you were talking about on bold predictions? And Tom, I know you said that I'm never allowed to again say honey hole. Got a message from our buddy Lowell who said, since I'm not allowed to say honey hole anymore, he said,
you're really not doing a very good job of it.
Honey hole. He was saying that he suggested agave abscess.
Nope, that's worse.
Okay,
that's worse.
Sorry, Lowell. I tried. He did ask me to make sure I worked it into the show. Boom. Done.
Hang the banner.
So thank you all for tuning in.
But you can keep coming up with synonyms for 30 more seconds, and I will.
We can.
I will put up my Jeremiah Smith one-handed catch picture because I had to find that on a hard drive.
And this super chat from Mike Ferguson will take us right into what I wanted to talk about. Now that Jim Knowles no longer works for Ohio State, I no longer miss the busted plays for 25 plus yards. Ryan Day and Julian Sayin and even Jeremiah Smith said the coverages had a lot to do with they were playing a lot of quarters, so they were able to attack that with the posts and things like that. And Jeremiah Smith even said on his long touchdown that he heard the corner and safety talking about the coverage that they were going to play, and so then he knew at that point, well, the ball's coming to me based on this. So I would say maybe hand signals or something of that nature rather than shouting over from 20 yards to the next guy.
You literally have helmet radios now. Like this feels again, like I said this earlier in some other context. Like I know technology sometimes doesn't get to Central Pennsylvania right away, but it feels like you should be up to speed with that by now.
And I think this shows that when Ohio State is successful throwing deep, because they're not always successful because sometimes the deep shots aren't there. This is a choice by Penn State. This was what they thought would work for them. And boy, there are at least 3 times where the safeties were just flat-footed and Jeremiah's running by them, Carnell Tate's running by them. Like you can't just wait for this guy to get to you and then start trying to run with them. It's not going to work for either of those guys. So there was one that I think it was the one to Jeremiah Smith. So it's press coverage. It's down.
Oh yeah, the shot downfield.
Yeah, and so I'm watching Jeremiah, and I see him take off, and then he's already even with the safety, and Jeremiah's open, and then I go back to look at Julian Sayin, and the ball's already gone. I'm like, where's the ball? And then I go back to look, and I'm looking for the ball, and Jeremiah Smith comes down with it. So
there he is.
And Ryan Day said it. So Julian Sayin's his mind works as quickly as his arm does, and boy, he put on a show today, and you see it there.
For sure. Yeah, that was the long one. I had the one in the end zone up earlier, but yeah, it was just you watch Carnell Tate do this stuff, and it's like, man, I don't know how anyone, sure, you can try and take away Jeremiah Smith, but then no one in the country has corners and safeties that can take away both of those guys at the same time, and then they take away Jeremiah Smith, and it's like, all right, that's it. We're not letting Carnell Tate beat us anymore. And then it's like, all right, well, we've got the other guy over there.
Well, and there was even Julian Sayin said on his scramble, both of those guys were doubled. And so then it's now you've got to worry about, Julian Sayin taking off in his legs. But like, sure, if you can go ahead and double 2 receivers and something else is going to open up, or there's not going to be a defender there to stop the third down play. But I do agree, try doubling those guys on 3rd and long. And that's what I would do.
Yeah, sure. You would try doubling them, but you can't double everyone. I mean, eventually you run out of defenders. So yeah, it was a really man, that is an Ohio State complaint right there. User 42, random complaint. I wish the NCAA would do away with the spending cap and what schools can spend on championship rings.
You know what?
That is rich person problems right there.
Make Justin's great again. That's what I say. Next.
Speaking of transitions. So yeah, and the run game. Let's talk a little bit about the run game, because they had the long one from Bo Jackson, and Bo Jackson felt like he hit a bunch, kind of consistently, not incredible. There were several times that I kind of looked over at Penn State and thought, when is the college football trade deadline? Because if you could get Katron Allen, you could put Katron Allen on this team and you trade them a couple future picks, something like that. Like, we'll give you a 4-star wide receiver to be named later. Like, it feels like that's a win-win for both teams.
Well, and it did not start off great for Bo Jackson when he lost 4 yards where there's nothing for him to do, and he just
right.
They were already busting him down. But here's what he ran for. So -4. 9, 8, 5, 3, 2, 1, 2, 51, 5, 9, 11, 3. I'm guessing most of those hit the efficiency number, and were quality runs, and so he was about what this was the best he's been in weeks, since the last time he went over 100 yards, and it's not just because of the 51-yarder, though that is good to see. Ohio State wore things down, and just looking in the fourth quarter, 56, 65, 70, 79 yards rushing in the fourth quarter from Bo Jackson. So things did wear down for Penn State defensively. And, you like seeing that if you are Ohio State. And they didn't, it's not like, they didn't give up on the run. It's like, well, they weren't going to keep throwing the ball in the fourth quarter.
I did think at one point, it's interesting that they have Julian Sayin in the game for the final drive, where you're putting him at risk. But if he's just going to hand the ball off, why don't you have Lincoln Kienholz in there? Which then I wondered, are we going to see him take a shot downfield here, or throw one more pass to try and get 5 touchdowns, or get over some passing, get him over 350 yards passing or whatever? And they didn't. It struck me as a little bit weird that you're putting your starter at risk in harm's way with no discernible benefit to it other than, you're not preserving Lincoln Kienholz's red shirt. So why not do that and get him off the field? You just saw Caleb Downs almost lose the first half of the next game, at a point where the game was functionally over for a targeting call that got overturned, just to spell that out. But that was a little weird to me. That what are you gaining here that this is worth whatever minute minute risk you're facing?
Yeah, well, and we talked about it in the pregame show where it seems like he'll keep the starters in a little bit longer, but the receivers were the backup receivers were in some of those, even though it was Jeremiah Smith that caught the touchdown pass at the end.
Yeah.
But when they went up 31-14, they immediately came out and ran the ball 4 times and punted. So it's like they're ready to kind of just like, well, I think this is enough. We can salt this thing away. And they did it the next time. And Bo Jackson went for 51 yards. And it's like, well, okay, I guess
all right.
We'll throw it here and see what happens.
Just looking through some of the other stuff, the running back rotation was interesting. I didn't pick up a real discernible pattern to it. I was surprised that Isaiah West had the same number of carries as James Peoples and 3 fewer carries than C.J. Donaldson, especially after C.J. Donaldson fumbled. Now, I know the fumble was – I saw Terry McCauley, who was one of the NBC, I think, officiating people, and he was on Twitter saying that he thought that should have been blown dead. I did not have a good view of it, but either way, that's a ball security thing. I was a little surprised that CJ Donaldson just went right back in and was given the opportunity to score the next touchdown after that.
Yeah, and they had to have to think about it as well. Like, but yeah, it was a little surprising because we were like talking to each other in the press box, like, so what does this? When's the next time we're going to see CJ Donaldson? And it's like, well, maybe the next drive.
Yeah,
and then he was, and then he exactly got a first down, got a touchdown. To me, it just depends on how things go during the week in practice, and then how things are going during the game. It was good to see James Peoples bust out. He was very excited to get that 11-yarder there and get going. But overall, like, I mean, clearly you can win like this when you have this passing game and you have enough of a running game. Like, it's not like they have no running game, because if you,
Penn State ran for 1.8 yards per carry.
That's no running game. And even Katron Allen, 21 of 76. Now, the first carry was 26 yards.
Right, yeah.
And then the next
so that
21
means the next
for 50.
21 for 50. So
but even, Ohio State rushing for 3 yards a carry and, like, legitimate rushes, it's not great. But when your quarterback can pick up 3rd and 5, not necessarily with his eyes closed, but with one eye closed and, one hand over his eye, the conversion is going to do pretty well, and the offense is going to continue to just churn out third downs. They were 6 of 9 in this game. Now, Penn State being 8 of 15, that's like that's not good, but not good for Ohio State's defense. But also, Penn State, they did a good job running the ball in the first half with just the power and the toss sweeps. Eventually, that got shut down. So it was interesting to see how that worked. But I am surprised by the 8 for 15, although Ryan Day did say they were not happy about those third downs.
Well, and this is the point of the year where this is so nitpicky, that you just took, again, the team that you probably expected to be one of your 3 hardest games on the schedule and just summarily dispatched them, even with a bunch of some dumb stuff going wrong before halftime. You still just kind of handled the business, and there was not an issue. This is, I know people can look at Penn State and go, well, it's the 5th loss in a row. How good can they be? This is the first time Penn State's gotten smoked in a game. Penn State has been in 60-minute games with everyone, with Oregon, with, 60-minute plus game with Oregon, but 60-minute game with UCLA, Northwestern, with Iowa last week on the road. And I know it's very easy to hand wave, oh, congratulations, you played a 60-minute game with Northwestern. Going on the road and playing Iowa with a first-time starting quarterback, to be in a 60-minute game there, that was all right. Like, that was, maybe they found something here. And then for Ohio State to just kind of farting around the end of the first half the way they did and turning it into a competitive first half game. This reminded me a little bit of a microcosm, a little bit of a mini version of the 2018 Ohio State-Michigan game. Remember that, where Ohio State kind of controlled the first half, and then they had, who was it? Was
Demario McCall?
Yeah, Demario McCall kind of botched a kickoff, right? And then Michigan scored 2 touchdowns in the span of like 9 seconds. And it was, Ohio State went from, I don't remember, 20-3 to 20-17 or something in the span of 9 seconds. And it was like, what just happened? How did, what? And that was an Ohio State team that was looking to pull an upset. And then they came out of the halftime and they just went, mashed the gas through the floor, and they won 62-39. 62-39. Yeah. So it reminded me a little bit of that, where it was like Ohio State controlled the whole first half, and you went, even when Penn State scored, I was like, yeah, but I mean, they're not. I can see how difficult this is for Ohio State, and I can see how difficult it is for Penn State. And I know who can do this more often through the course of the game. Yeah. So even when Penn State scored right before the half, that was kind of like, well, that was stupid. But, it didn't. Ryan Day managed that. I thought Ryan Day should have been calling his timeouts to give themselves another crack at the middle 8 there. He didn't do it, but you watch them come down the field after the halftime. It was just kind of like, yeah, okay. I mean, they were never deeply concerned in any way.
No, he said at half it felt like they were down 21 just because that was so disappointing.
Yeah,
but also he told the team, like, as long as we don't turn it over, we're going to win.
Oh yeah,
and you could, like,
yeah,
no, there's no hiding the fact that they were marching down the field and only stopping themselves.
We have a super chat from FDR. It's great here that we have to get. Does the Big Ten review goal line touchdowns? Penn State's second touchdown. The Big Ten automatically reviews all scoring plays. I'm 111 yards from in the other direction, so I didn't see that. Was there some controversy over that?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's ever a good shot of the ball going over, but I think the problem is that maybe the review is so quick in Chicago now, where they do it all centrally located on stuff like that, like the replay assist, where we don't even necessarily know that the stuff is happening. But they showed some overheads, and it's like I never saw the ball. But also it's like, well, I mean, how are you going to overturn it? And that's the other thing where,
right?
Yeah. How can we overturn this? I don't see how. I don't know where the ball is.
Right. Yeah. And you've run into that a lot with those plays in the middle line. Even when you do have a camera shot straight down the goal line, there are a lot of large bodies crashing into each other. You never really,
I assumed he just reached the ball over, because live, it did not look like he made it. And you've got the top line judge like running in with his arms up saying touchdown. And the other one is like at the half-yard line running up, running up towards the ball. So it's like, well, let's see who wins this fight.
Yeah.
And it's the guy with his arms up, because he had the only vantage point that saw the ball, apparently.
Yeah. And that was what, first and goal from the 1, and they had timeouts left. So they were going to get multiple cracks from the 1 there. So if they don't get it in there.
When have we seen, Tom, an Ohio State defense bow up and stop somebody from scoring? I couldn't remember a time.
Not a once. All right. So do we want to talk about the Ohio State defense? Do we want to hear a little bit from Terry Smith about the Ohio State offense?
Let's, since we're on the offense.
All right. So this is going to be the first Terry Smith soundbite. I think I might have called it something clever like Terry Smith on Ohio State wide receivers. I will find it. Terry Smith on Ohio State wide receivers. So you're going to hear Terry Smith talk about
what?
I forget. He was essentially asked, what did Ohio State do to get the better of you in the passing game? And then the second question is, what happened to the offense in the second half and why they couldn't throw vertically like he wanted them to?
I think it's a combination of all things, lack of pass rush, lack of DBs covering. There's times we're in man, there's times we're in cover 3. It was a point of emphasis. It was keys to victory. You cannot let them beyond you. Now, credit to those guys. They are the 2 best guys in the country. Just watching these guys live, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to the past Ohio State receivers, these 2 are better than all of them, and those guys are all good. So they put it on film, and they were outstanding today. We could not cover them. Yeah, we continued to struggle in the vertical pass game. There was some opportunities in the second quarter where we had some 3rd and long situations, and we threw the ball in that intermediate range. Ethan threw some nice balls and some nice conversions. We didn't follow it up in the 3rd or 4th quarter. I have to get that fixed. It's something that I have to go in and talk with the staff, and there's no exceptions. I have to get it fixed.
So there you go. So a little taste of Terry Smith. We'll get you a little more later on in the show, because I did want to talk about the decision to punt on that first drive. We'll get to that later on, but we'll talk a little more about Ohio State. Their struggles to do anything really against the Ohio State defense. Let's hit the super chat real quick from Rob H. I was pleasantly surprised that they reversed the targeting call and that Caleb made that call matter very soon thereafter. That looked like an incredible interception for him, but the targeting call itself, did you have a good view of that? I was absolutely not in a
Well, yeah, I saw it coming, and you knew that this guy was going to take a big hit, and wasn't shocked when 4 guys threw flags on that one.
Well, I saw a bunch of flags, and I thought, without even seeing it, I thought, I bet this is going to be targeting.
Again, this is where we need our buddy Marcus Hartman out here. He's the arbiter of targeting. He's the only person I know that knows what targeting is. So whenever I'm watching football with him and something happens, I go, is that targeting? And then he tells me.
Targeting?
But, I don't know. It sure looks like it. The thing is, on replay, he certainly launches. He hits him with, the side of his neck, shoulder type thing. So it's not like a But again, like what are all of the what do they call them?
The
elements.
yes,
Thank you, Steve
the
Hellwagon, Bucknuts 24/7, CBS Sports. The elements there, and I mean, again, I'm not going to pretend to know what targeting is because again, you have every Saturday you will watch a game where you see a targeting, and the rules official in the booth is like, I don't think this is targeting, and then the conference is like, this is targeting.
Yeah.
So like me, I don't know.
What do I know?
What do I know?
Yeah, it is a. So that was certainly a benefit to Ohio State to not lose him for the first half against Purdue was really the biggest piece of that. But the Ohio State defense on the whole, I know we have some graphics with some defensive stats that we can pop up here, but Arvell Reese 12 tackles, Caden McDonald 8 tackles. I believe we talked on the pregame show about who would be the defensive tackle to have it be the this guy game, and we talked about Caden McDonald, and Caden McDonald with 8 tackles, Arvell Reese with 2.5 tackles for loss and a sack. Kenyatta Jackson 2.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. It feels like you look at these guys and you look at you had the Caden Curry game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, I can't believe Caden Curry's really stepped up and Kenyatta Jackson, but I really thought we were going to have a big season from Kenyatta Jackson. And it hasn't really happened yet. And then a couple weeks later, it's, Caden Curry didn't have a huge game, but Kenyatta Jackson had a couple sacks and 2.5 tackles for loss. And, man, Arvell Reese, holy smokes. Like there were a whole lot of NFL scouts here. We got asked about Arvell Reese's draft prospects pre-game on the pregame live show. Didn't hurt them today with all the NFL scouts in attendance.
I do love speaking about the NFL draft with literal NFL scouts sitting next to us while we're
and I'm
trying
explaining
to sound like educated people.
Well, and I'm explaining these people are morons who can't figure out how to draft quarterbacks, this is one of these truth is the ultimate defense to libel situations. So can't get mad.
Yeah. Prove me wrong, kids. Prove me wrong. Caden McDonald. If I tell you, Tom, that Caleb Downs now has just 5 more solo tackles this season than Caden McDonald. Former Pee Wee League teammates. Like this is a guy who had 70 more solo tackles than anybody else on the Alabama team as a freshman, or it was a lot more. Now, because of this defense being what it is, just has 5 more solo tackles, I believe. Because Caden McDonald had 4 today. Caleb Downs had 1. They're getting closer. Caden McDonald also the 8 tackles today. He is the first Ohio State nose tackle with 8 tackles in a game since he did it in the season opener, which was the first time since 2012 or 13 when 2012 when Garrett Goebel did it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, rarefied air for that guy.
Well, you look at this Ohio State defense, and it's very easy to look and go, why are they able to do all this stuff that no one has done since 1993 Florida State? They gave up 14 points today, but 7 of that is on the fumble. You turn the ball over inside the red zone. That's not really on the defense.
Can I also be really nitpicky?
Sure.
The legitimate touchdown drive probably should have been stopped when Will Smith was held on the 3rd and long that turned into a completion.
I saw. Well, I have photos of Will Smith almost getting to the quarterback, and I didn't have. He was behind the ref, so I missed whatever happened before. But I saw there was a cacophony of.
Should this have been 45-0? Yes.
Is this the conclusive proof that the Big Ten's massive anti-Penn State conspiracy is over?
I think so. Finally, and all it took was to get rid of James Franklin, Bill O'Brien, and Joe Paterno. Mm-hmm. So. Small price indeed. But if you look at the Ohio State defense, they had I don't know if this was on the TV broadcast, but during one of the commercial breaks, they had at the point at which Ohio State had very clearly put the game away for good. I think it might have been after the final touchdown. They had a fan cam thing where they showed Jim Knowles up in the booth and everyone goes, boo. And then they show Matt Patricia on the sideline and everyone goes, yay. And then they show Jim Knowles up in the booth and everyone goes, boo. And then they show Matt Patricia on the sideline again. And everyone goes, yay. And I do think
Matt Patricia deserves a ton of credit for how good this Ohio State defense is. And I went back and looked at one of the, I think it might have been the show that we did when we were talking about Matt Patricia's hiring. And, you know, I think you can go back and watch that, and you're going to see a lot of people ready to throw themselves off the roof at how Ohio State has hired this cretin who, you know, is a disaster with the Detroit Lions. And I think you and I probably come off pretty well because we're kind of saying like, yeah, man, I don't know. We'll see. I think Ryan Day has probably earned the benefit of the doubt right now. One thing that I definitely was incorrect about is I said, I will guarantee you this year's Ohio State defense is not as good as last year's Ohio State defense, which I mean, it's true. It's better. So therefore I was sort of correct. It wasn't as good. It was better.
Right. You're right.
Which is what I meant. I probably didn't express myself clearly.
That's a very slim margin
it's not
that you tried to hit.
It's not going to be exactly the same. But you look at how is this defense better than the one that was the best defense in the country last year and won the national championship? Matt Patricia deserves a ton of the credit. But man, oh man, to have a Caleb Downs, to have the guys we don't talk about because no one throws the ball at them. Davis Enigmanos and Jermaine Matthews. I didn't even notice those guys during the game today.
No.
But also the Caden McDonalds, the Kenyatta Jacksons, the Arvell Reese, the Sonny Studs. It's like, okay, we've talked about all the position groups. That's everyone on defense. And it's like all of these guys are having incredible seasons.
Tywan Malone was making plays again. Edric Houston had a sack and a forced fumble. You mentioned not saying the corners. Davis Enigmanos did go out in the fourth quarter with like a hand or a wrist, and he never came back. But he never went to the tent either, from what I saw there. He was just talking with the trainer.
Okay.
But again, you wouldn't necessarily need to go back in at that point.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing that you did not mention with the Patricia Knowles thing is that eventually the players caught on to it, and were like, whenever they would show Patricia, they'd be like pointing at him, and Patricia's like trying I don't want to be involved in this. So that it was interesting there. I know some people did not care for it in terms of do you need to do this?
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit petty and this is not like Ryan Day personally approved this. This is stadium ops.
This is clearly Ryan Day's brother.
This is private eyes are watching you, and that's how they see you up in the booth. Yes. No, this is not like Ryan Day personally approved this. It was a little petty, and it was, when they did the Google Me thing for Kurt Signetti after the game last year, that was a little petty, but that's someone who kind of called out Ohio State and doesn't have the track record of did some great things at Ohio State. So it was I get it. And I understood the, playing Zombie Nation when at the exact point where this game is the most over any football game has been, that's when you bring out, I always want teams when they beat LSU to play neck, because that is the best way to pick the exact right moment and then drag their lifeless corpse. Yes, jump around. They played Rocky Top last year in Columbus when they beat Tennessee. And, I get it. It's fun. It's cool. I like it. It's amusing. The Knowles thing, Knowles, I will tell you, Knowles on the field before the game, lots of hugs, lots of smiles, long conversation with Matt Guerreri, who, was obviously spent a lot of time with him at Duke and then at Oklahoma State, and, knew him well. So, this is not someone who's universally reviled by any means, but I know you're wearing a different color clothes. So now you're the heel.
I did see a comment there. The Brutus entrance was interesting.
Yes.
What was that? I didn't see
Brutus came down on a zip line from the top of the stadium. Now, my experience with the Brutus entrance was I was standing there watching the Gronk and Jeff Swoboda thing right as the Brutus entrance happens, and I turn my head and I'm watching Brutus come in on the zip line, and I turn back, and I assume that Gronk has recreated the photo, but I have missed it during the 3 seconds that I've looked that way. So it was I've been standing here for 20 minutes waiting for this incredible moment, and I presumably missed it. I don't know if they actually recreate. I haven't actually seen anyone with the photo that they actually recreated it. So
on TV they did not.
Okay, so then they didn't. Okay, so I didn't miss anything. So,
I don't know if they did it afterwards.
Yeah, no, no, they didn't. But yes, that was a phenomenal moment as well. That was Do you want to explain the bit? I assume people who are watching this are probably plugged in enough to know.
Well, maybe. I mean,
is.
so the famous photo, if you just look up Rob Gronkowski, Ohio State, photo, it's gonna
Rob Gronkowski
Ohio State.
Gronk hungover probably returns a lot of different photos, but
he is a recruiting visit in 2006. And next to him is Jeff Svoboda, who was on the beat at BSB, Buckeye Sports Bulletin at the time. Photo taken by Adam Jardy of the Columbus Dispatch, who was the basketball beat writer. A young Jeff Svoboda, a very hungover Rob Gronkowski, and Jeff every year probably doesn't go 3 months without that photo popping back up and somebody hitting him on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. And so almost 20 years now, they finally. Because they ask Gronk about it all the time as well. Like people will ask him about that trip to Ohio State, like what happened, and he's talked about how his buddies from Pennsylvania came over on that trip with them, and they went out, and how they're always just looking for fights, and they got a little too rowdy, and so he was definitely hungover for his trip for his visit that day, and you could tell. And so then they got everybody back together. Sober as you would expect adults to be in this day and age, and but the best thing is, it's like the names on the Fox broadcast. Rob Gronkowski. It just says what did it say for Jeff? Guy with Gronk. So talking to Svoboda in the press box afterwards, like I'm a pretty accomplished guy. Should be more than just guy with Gronk.
He is the Columbus Blue Jackets team reporter right now. Like you can follow his professional account. He has a personal Twitter account. His professional account is @Jackets Insider. So he is someone who has I'm
a pretty accomplished guy. Guy with Gronk.
Yeah. So that was,
and there was no chance that Gronk was going to pronounce his last name either. It was just Jeff. Good to see you.
Yes. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That was a funny. That was very, very funny. Funny reunion there.
How about Brandon Innes getting more involved, continuing to get more involved, using the seam down the field, and even another one they went deep to him that was pass interference. The first pass interference accepted against the opponent this year on a throw for Ohio State wide receiver, but 4 for 41, and last week tied the season high with 3 catches. Now he's got his season high with 4. The offense continues to evolve and embrace more. Now Max Clare only had 1 catch. I think those two guys are gonna, just go back and forth in terms of who has 4, who has 1, who has 5, who has 2, that sort of thing. But the more that Brandon Innes becomes a threat, the more you're going to see the outside stuff continue to open up.
Yeah, for sure. This is just if you can do one more thing, that just makes you harder to defend. And you're going to take away Carnell Tate. Okay, well, all right, go back to Jeremiah Smith. If you're going to take away Jeremiah Smith, go back to Carnell Tate. Take away both those guys. All right, Brandon Innes is in the middle of the field. And, I thought this was a game where Jim Knowles would potentially try and take away both guys, and we'd have a bunch of Max Clare seam shots, and he had 1 catch for 6 yards, but it turned out to be Brandon Innes in a lot of cases. So,
and the RPO is again working when they needed to. Just the passing game at this point it's as efficient and as good as we've ever seen. Now, it's not as prolific as 2018 because they don't need it to be.
Right.
It's not as prolific as 2021 because they don't need it to be. They're not in these shootouts. And 2018, they couldn't run the ball either, but it was just like throwing the ball 40, 50 times while also having 82 snaps a game instead of 62 this year. So not only were there more snaps, they're throwing the ball more, and you're throwing for 4,800 yards, I think. This, you're not going to see you'll see Julian Sayin probably get to 4,000 because Will Howard did. But the way they do it, it's much more surgical. Like defenses may not even feel the pain until like the next morning. Like, why my Achilles sore? It's like, because you got them sliced last night. You just didn't know it.
Yeah. Let's see. Do we have other? Sorry, I'm trying. I have. Then let's tell you what. Let's hit some.
Yeah, let's stop making the people wait.
Let's hit some questions.
Not this one though.
Michael says that second half was a chef's kiss, total lockdown. That was, the drive chart there for the second half was Penn State 7 for 7 plays, 16 yards, punt. 6 plays, 2 yards, punt. 3 plays, negative 11 yards, punt. 12 plays, 68 yards, interception. Womp. And I cannot emphasize this strongly enough. Womp.
Yeah, that was very much a tease.
And then the second half for Ohio State, 5 plays, 75 yards, touchdown, 7 plays, 84 yards, touchdown, 4 plays, 17 yards, punt. What's wrong with, who needs to be fired? 2 plays, 62 yards, touchdown. And then they kind of ran out the clock at the end of the game.
Yeah, it's exactly how they drew it up. They drew up the first half in a very similar way. It's just sometimes weird things happen. And that's, Ryan Day talked about it, where you work for all of this and one turnover can cost all of it. And so I think there's a very good thing to happen in this game so that they could learn the lesson in the win, as they say, is always much better than learning a lesson in a loss.
Well, and this was also a very low possession game again, where you go through the results of Ohio State's drives, and they played almost a perfect game outside of the fumble and that one punt in the second half. Touchdown, field goal, touchdown, the fumble, and then one kneel down before the half. Touchdown, punt, touchdown, and then running out the clock at the end of the game. So you had 5 touchdowns and 1 field goal and a punt and 1 fumble and 1 punt. I mean, you're going to score 38 points in 7 drives, and one of them is a 1-play fumble. I mean, that's pretty good. And this is not a bad Penn State team. This really is not a bad Penn State team. This is a completely lost Penn State team, but this is a Penn State team that has talent. And their defensive coordinator is not a dummy. They have a very, very sharp defensive coordinator. They have a talented defense. But man, oh man, I mean, Ohio State this was Ohio State made this look pretty effortless tonight.
Yeah. They were stopping themselves more than anything else. McCalhoun, JR, MCJ, who will be the first defender taken on Ohio State? Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, or Sonny Styles? And here's the answer. Is Arvell Reese because of the freakish nature and the possibilities. With Caleb Downs, it's like, we know what we're going to get. We're going to get a 12-year vet who's going to be solid and does everything we need and is not necessarily the flashy center fielder. At least that's not what Ohio State uses him for. The flash, I think, is always the thing that ends up luring. I mean, it's like fishing, the flashy lures, that sort of thing. And Arvell Reese can do the pass rush. He can do whatever you need. And those pass rushes are always going to be more sought after than safeties, even though Caleb Downs, as a true freshman, I was told he'd be a top 10 pick right now after his freshman year. Nothing has changed there. Somebody's going to be very happy to get him, and he may not last, beyond the 10th pick. But I just think with Arvell Reese right now, but then the question is, he's playing so well at linebacker. Does that take away his value as an edge rusher?
I don't know, because I think he's shown he can do both of those things. So I think it's just kind of a which team picks him, what kind of defense do they run? Because he can kind of do what do you want him to be? You want to be an edge rusher? Fine. You want him to be a linebacker, off-ball linebacker? Fine. Like, whatever you want, he'll do it and he'll be successful. And I think you've seen this year, this is Matt Patricia has a reputation of running a complicated defense. Arvell Reese is the guy with the green dot on the back of his helmet, not Caleb Downs. Now that's really usually it's a linebacker. Not that Caleb Downs obviously couldn't be that guy.
Well, it's Sonny.
Oh, is it Sonny?
Generally,
it's Sonny.
But
okay,
it's not. It's like I said, it's not Caleb.
It's not Caleb. But yeah, they've got smart guys. Arvell is so freakish and athletic. It's a really, really impressive group. And you're probably looking at a combination of positional value and position of need for the teams in terms of who's going. Both of those guys going in the top 10, 12, whatever, wouldn't surprise me at all.
And from what I was told, talking with somebody today, Carnell Tate, the NFL likes him more right now in terms of his route running and after catch abilities than Jeremiah Smith. Now, Jeremiah Smith as a junior next year is
sure.
But right now, what they see a more polished guy, and so wide receiver 1. Like I told you earlier in the week, I saw like him. He's popping up now as the top 5, top 10 pick as well, and nothing we saw today would make me say no to that. And then, Sonny Styles will be somewhere in the first round. Caden McDonald, don't be surprised if he shows up somewhere in that first round as well. And then there's just no way they'll be able to replace everybody next year. So it's just enjoy it now.
Tony, listen, I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. There's no way this Ohio State defense is as good next year as it is this year. So you better enjoy it now.
Enjoy it now. I like this one from Hardy Jens. Can't wait to watch ESPN break down Julian's 3 incompletions. I'll tell you what. You won't need to wait for ESPN if they don't do it. I will eventually do it and put it out on Twitter.
You put out a bunch of his, every time Julian Sayin has thrown an incomplete pass inside his own 20, and it's like, depending, this is either analytical or some real hate. And I'm still, I'm pretty sure I know which one it is. But,
hating,
yeah,
for sure.
agreed.
But I do think this would be a good not film exercise, but a good example of how well he's playing by putting those 3 incompletions out there for everybody to see and understand. Like, these are not wild passes that everybody else has.
Yep. Chip says Arvell for Heisman. Listen, there's, if you can get him to return some punts and play wide receiver, sure, anything is possible.
I say they love playing their tight ends, 14 personnel. We've seen it. We saw the touchdown pass to Bennett Christian. There's nothing wrong with putting in Arvell Reese as one of your 4 tight ends and letting him run a little play action into the flats.
You could absolutely do that against Rutgers, although heaven help you if he sprains an ankle the week before the Michigan game. And
I think it'd be worth it. I think to increase awareness of this linebacker who, for some reason, decides I wanted to catch a touchdown pass.
Do the old Rashad Berry offense and defense. Yeah, it's possible.
He kicked around in the NFL for a very long time.
He did. User 42 says it's been too long since a Buckeye has won the Heisman. I mean, that 2006, Troy Smith. That's it has been for as often as they've had finalists.
Yeah.
You go back and Justin Fields, Chase Young, Dwayne Haskins, CJ Stroud, Marvin Harrison. I mean, they've had, that's 5. I might be forgetting someone. That's 5 finalists in the last 7 years. That, you could
who? No.
You could, odds are you're going to win one of these at some point. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be Arvell Reese, but I think there's someone on the team that easily could do that this year.
And we talked about it at one of the shows earlier this week. Right now, Julian Sayin, if everything goes as things are favored to, he will win the Heisman. You just beat Michigan, play well. You beat Indiana, play well. He and Fernando Mendoza are going to be your top 2 picks. The Diego Pavia thing is over now with that loss to Texas. So, that's not even – although I guess they did come back. But, again, let's stop talking about that. But Julian Sayin versus Fernando Mendoza. But you have to beat Michigan.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then it's like, well, now you can still, I guess, vie for it. But if you just want to run away with it, that's one way to do it. And whoever comes out of that Big Ten championship game, if it's a 12-0 against a 12-0, go ahead and give it to him at that point.
Yep, for sure. Next one, Lisa says, I can't wait until Tuesday night for the CFP rankings to come out and the arguing begins.
And we will be going live. We are beginning our live Tuesday night shows, which we'll show up a little bit beforehand and react to the rankings live. And then I'll jump on the teleconference and tell you all of the lies that the committee is telling people to get them to believe. And then, we'll be there with you. I guess we'll see, but I kind of expect Indiana to be number 1 based on the win over Oregon and the domination over everybody else for the most part. And Ohio State has been dominating as well, but they don't have that Oregon win like Indiana does.
Although Texas beating Vanderbilt,
I'm saying
you wonder if that now, Texas was 20th in the regular polls. They just get a win over number 9 in the regular polls. Do you move to 15? Do you move to
where is Oregon in relation to Texas and
north and west?
Left.
Okay. Left, yes. Left. So let's get to the next one. Ethan says running back depth is very concerning. Is the depth concerning? What about the running back room is
they're
concerning?
Deep. They're just not very productive. So they've got a lot of those guys, that aren't necessarily doing what you would like, getting the 5.5 yards, 5.5 yards a carry. But you've got 4 guys at play. That's a rarity at Ohio State when you can go 4 deep. Now, would they be going 4 deep if James Peoples and CJ Donaldson were averaging 7 yards a carry?
If they had 2 guys who were running like the guys last year were,
right,
well, they would be too deep.
I don't think it's the depth; it's the top level of talent that they don't have yet, and maybe they will get there. I just wonder at what point. I don't want to say will it matter? Does it matter? Like if they're just doing not this, because this is more than I think they'll do against playoff teams, right? Like I don't expect them to rush for 164 generally in kind of any playoff game. But do they need to? 3 yards of carry and 9 yards of pass attempt. I mean,
well, this is a team that can beat you in. This is not a team that has to win one specific kind of game.
Right.
They can win a shootout. They can throw for 400 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns, and they can beat you that way. This is, I think, also a team that can win a rock fight because the defense is so solid and so good in the red zone that if you hold the opponent to 13 points, you don't need to do that much. You can just sort of be efficient and stay on schedule and run enough. And if you complete 87% of your passes, here's the thing: Julian Sayin can come way off of his numbers right now and still be an incredibly effective passer. You can, if you're completing 70%. What did Will Howard complete last year on average? 75%, give or take. Julian Sayin can come. You can adjust for the opponent and say, okay, well, he'll never be that good against good opponents. Okay, lop the 10% off of his completion percentage, and he's still, 73%. So that was good enough to win the national championship last year, and the defense sure seems like better this year. I mean, I know you don't want to look past a full month of football, and I know you don't want to look past the Michigan game, but man, oh man, Ohio State, Indiana, if that's the Big Ten championship game, holy Moses. Because Indiana is doing to Maryland exactly what you would expect Indiana to do to Maryland right now. That just feels like such a fascinating matchup potentially in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and again, we will give it all of the time that it deserves if it gets to us. Believe me, but I think everybody associated with Ohio State and Indiana would love to see that, including the Big Ten.
Yep. The Jam says, I don't know why Penn State went away from what was working in the first half. I don't think they went away from it. I mean, I was over there at the Penn State postgame interviews, and Terry Smith didn't really talk about it, but I was sort of editing together some of the videos that we're putting on this show, and I was sitting there listening to some of the players talk about stuff, and it was a lot of Ohio State just sort of changed what they were, it wasn't that Penn State changed, it was that Ohio State changed what they're doing. Ethan Grunkemeyer, and I thought this was a little bit telling, and we're going to maybe play a little bit of sound from him later. I don't think this is going to be part of that, but he was asked about what changed at halftime, and he said Ohio State, made really good adjustments at halftime, and someone asked, what are they doing? He goes, I got to go back and watch the film. And it's like, if you don't know right now, that's Ohio State really confused you. And this is a guy, a redshirt freshman, who is not probably expecting to be the starter right now, making his second career start on the road in a loud and hostile environment against a guy who has been confusing fifth-year senior quarterbacks. So that's really kind of not a fair fight. But it was, it wasn't that Penn State stopped doing something. It was that Ohio State went, okay, I see what you're doing, and we're going to do this. And Ohio State, as I said earlier, can beat you in a bunch of different ways. Penn State, Andy Kotelnicki's going to run out of cutesy crap at some point, and then they're in trouble.
Well, and so here's how things went in the first half for Penn State rushing the ball. In the first quarter, they were 5 of 34 rushing. Second quarter, 14 of 42. Third quarter, 6 for -13.
Is that good?
It's not good.
Oh.
Fourth quarter, 6 for -18. So 12 carries for a loss of 21 yards in the second half. Why did they go away from the run? Because they were trying to go forward, and the only way to do that was to throw an incompletion.
Well, and some of that I'm sure is sack adjusted.
Yes,
but
correct.
Even looking at the they lost 39 yards on sacks, but even looking at Katron Allen, his rushing 26, -2, 3, 1, 6, 2, 7, 0, 2, 1, 9, 3, 0, 0, 4, 1, 2, 0, 2, 9, 0. Like there's a bunch of
Jenny.
There's a bunch of, yeah, really. But there's a bunch of 9s and 7s and a 26. And it's like, wow, that's really good. And then, boy, there's a lot of 1s and 2s and 3s in there. And one of them was on 1st and goal from the 1, but most of them weren't.
Yeah. And well, here's his second half carries. It's 2-0-2-9-0. And, none of those are on the goal line.
Mm-hmm.
So like they shut things down, and they did a really good job in the first half, just outnumbering with the old school toss sweeps, student body left, student body right, doing some of that stuff. And Ohio State have done, like, you can't necessarily live on that because it's not like 1970s anymore.
Right.
But it's a good way to get some jabs in and maybe score.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also liked, we haven't talked about this, Ohio State coming out in so many different looks in the first half, like so many things that we have not seen. It's like, I think I posted it on the board, like never go full Kodal Nicky, but like they were moving a lot of things around, and like diamond formation, and they'd off to the right, and they'd have either James Peoples motion in, and then one time they didn't, they threw a screen to him. Like they had tight ends in the backfield. Like it was very interesting, and they kept Jim Knowles guessing, and that was one of the things Ryan Day said. Like he's like, I don't want to use the word not be predictable. I guess I don't want the defense to be able to anticipate as quickly and as well, and I think it worked.
Yeah, well, you had a defensive coordinator who had been in the building for the last 3 years, and really, he knows what you're thinking. He knows what you're, he went in every situation. He knows what your first inclination is. So you've got to go, okay, well, we're not going to do that. So we're going to do something else, because you get into the we know that you know that we know that you know situation. So you got to kind of break tendencies, which you're going to do in a game like this anyway. But it was almost, there were points in the first half that I'm like, are they just messing with him? Like, are they just, it was just like, was there a meeting last year where someone was sitting and, Jim Knowles said, that'll never work against this. And it was like, I'll show you. All right. Well, yeah, I don't know that was the case, but it was just, they were doing enough different, like completely out of nowhere stuff that I was kind of wondering, like, is there a subtext here that we're not all completely aware of?
Did you want to get to the last bit of your sound there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So let me remember what the last bit of the sound is. So this is, okay. So this is about the first drive for Penn State. Penn State, Terry Smith has talked all week about the fact they're going to empty the clip, and they're going to do everything they can. And they're going to, they're going to throw everything against the wall, and they're going to see what works. And they, this is a Penn State offense that has struggled. It's a Penn State offense that has not been able to, not been able to consistently score at all this year, let alone with a true freshman starting or a redshirt freshman starting quarterback. And so Penn State gets the ball, first play of the game, boom. Katron Allen runs for 26 yards into Ohio State territory. We got a question on the pregame show. Will Penn State even get into Ohio State territory? It's like, well, that took one play, and now they're in Ohio State territory. And then second play, 6-yard pass. And then a third play was like, oh, Katron Allen, 2-yard loss. So now it's 3rd and 6. You run the ball on 3rd and 6 with Katron Allen. James Franklin back, question mark. 3-yard gain. Great. It's 4th and 3 at the Ohio State 42.
Yeah.
Empty the clip, Tony.
No.
Is the clip already empty? No, it's time to punt the ball and gain 31 yards of field position. It was like, how many times do you think you're going to have the ball here? They got the ball in that spot or better, had the ball in that position or better twice later in the game. One of them was because they got a fumble. The offense got the ball down that far on the field one more time in the game. You know what your defense is. You know how many points Ohio State's likely to score. How are you punting the ball in that situation?
Well, and he had also said, I'm demanding Andy call some downfield shots. And I think there was one down the middle in the second half that was maybe like a 30-yard pass. And it's like, you're going to demand your coordinator, your coaches be aggressive, but the first opportunity you have to show that, you're all in, it's like, well, you better punt.
4th and 3, like it's 4th and 8. I get it. Like, sure, you don't 4th and 3. Come on, man. Now here, he was asked about this. And I saw someone in the chat asking about Audrey Snyder, who is phenomenal.
Yep.
She does a Substack now, I think. But she is phenomenal covering Penn State. And she was actually the one who asked him about this. So here was Terry Smith's explanation on why he decided to punt on that first drive.
Yeah, another key point of emphasis was winning field position. We know what their offense is. We felt like let's give them a long field. They had 90 yards to go. Unfortunately for us, they went 90 yards. But hindsight's 20/20. But we wanted to make sure we won a field position battle. And in the first half, we did win the field position battle. We're in the game. In the second half, we didn't win field position, and we did not win the game.
The idea that this was going to be a field position game, I think, betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of the talent level on the Ohio State offense, where you as a defense have been giving up. You gave up big plays to Iowa last week.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you're going to go on the road and you're going to win a 13-10 slugfest against Ohio State with Julian Sayin looking as Julian Sayin has basically the last month, and Ohio State's wide receivers looking as they have the last month, and a quarterback, Penn State's offense was, they can't really go pedal to the metal because then you're going to turn the ball over and then you give Ohio State short fields. Like, I would love to understand what the vision was there, where we're going to punt and play field position this is the big picture right move right now.
Well, a famous person once said, hope is a strategy. And so I think that was the strategy there.
I don't think that's the exact quote.
I believe those words are all part of that.
It is all part of it. Yes. Yeah. I when your game plan involves the phrase "and then a miracle happened,"
Correct.
Like that's probably not a winning game plan. But yeah, I mean, the sun did sometimes shine down directly right on certain people. But Mike Ferguson super chat says, first half Fox, Terry Smith is a genius. Second half Fox, let's talk about who will be the next external head coach hire at Penn State.
What about the genius?
And he's in an impossible spot. Like this is, I was saying to you before we started, being in those post-game interviews, it's been a long time since we've been in, the Michigan won last year. Yeah, the Michigan won last year. But I mean, a totally lost season.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the only times we've been in that kind of a locker room interview setting is end of the season. The Fiesta Bowl in 2019, the Peach Bowl in 2022,
Bowl against Missouri,
Cotton Bowl against Missouri. But those are, that's not lost season. That's end of season. Yeah. This is a Penn State team that's came in with national championship aspirations, is on a 5-game losing streak. When was the last time Ohio State was on a 5-game losing streak ever? I mean, I don't think they did it in 2011. I don't think they did it in 1999. No. Did they do it in 1987? I don't think they even lost. 88, maybe they lost 6 games that year. Other than that, you're looking at, that would be a fun thing to look up. Not fun for Penn State people, but because I think the answer might legitimately be, either it was 19 and Dickety 6, or it's never happened.
So yeah, I think are we good? Are we good then? We've got everybody.
ChatGPT this, but it's slow.
Okay.
So you can't use ChatGPT for sports.
Well, I know it's always wrong.
Yes. Yeah, I only use it for gambling.
I
don't use it at all.
I did see someone say that Penn State's next head coach is having quite a day today, and that's Bill O'Brien, who is down 12-7 against Notre Dame, a ranked Notre Dame team, highly ranked Notre Dame team, going to Boston College and having a slog.
Yeah,
I don't think we've ever seen this before.
I will be interested and we don't need to talk about this now, but I'm fascinated to see who ends up at Penn State and all of the spinning plates and moving chairs of all of these LSU and whatnot. But so now's not the time. Now is not the place. We do want to thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up. We would appreciate it. And of course, you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.